Coming up on the program today, we're going to talk all about vegetables that absolutely love the heat. And we'll discuss some of the biggest mistakes gardeners make.
And we'll talk with author and front yard gardener Shawna Coranado. And we'll also talk about eating weeds. All that and more coming up today on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Podcast.
The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Podcast is permeating into your ears with your host, Joey Bear.
And it could be the weeds. Some gardeners try to get all the weeds out of their garden. Other gardeners leave them in their garden. It's really a decision that you need to make. There's benefits to both sides of that. It's just something that you need to figure out what you want to do for your garden.
And Holly Bear.
Canning is a science. When you're canning, you want to make sure you follow the directions, follow the recipe, don't cut corners, don't replace things. It's crucial to you, your health, and your family.
They're professional gardeners with full-time jobs, and they're on the air now.
Greetings, fellow gardeners and preppers and homesteaders and those who've just tuned in to learn more about gardening. We appreciate you tuning in to a very informative episode today. I am your host, Joey Barrett. Beside me is my best friend, co-host, wife,
Holly Beard.
Behind the TWVG microphone here at the WI Garden Media Studios in southeast Wisconsin. The information that you're going to hear is important and vital to the success of your garden. You just may have to tweak some of the dates and times that you applied for. If you're tuning in, you probably already know who we are. But if you don't, we'll briefly go over who we are and what we do, and we'll get right into those vegetables that you can plant in the hottest portions of the summer.
We are a husband-wife couple. We create videos for you. They're informative YouTube videos, tutorial-type videos, where we show you how to garden, can, what to do with the food you grow, cook, and make many other things with it.
We also produce a quarterly digital magazine that is free for you to read online through the website, thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com. Download it to read at your own leisure. You can also print that out, so that's there for you. We've got like 6 or 7 of them up on the website now. We write all of the articles in those magazines, those digital magazines. Occasionally may have a guest article from someone, but it's another way to get more information out to you. And then we also do this podcast, and for all previous podcasts to check out, you can find on the website, thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com. You click on the podcast tab, and you can see the guests that we have, and a lot of information we've already covered, and there's still a lot to cover in 2015. So let's talk about some of the plants, Holly, that some of the vegetables that absolutely love the heat. We're getting into the the portions of summer here. Now, some of the projections for summer in the central portion of the United States is going to be below average temperatures, but there are going to be some hot spots, and you know, there are certain plants that thrive in the heat, and there are certain plants that do okay in the heat, and some like, you know, average moderate temperatures. So let's talk about some of these that we can grow in the hot weather.
So one is okra.
Well, you don't like okra, but it's more of a southern plant because
Yeah.
it can handle that heat. We've attempted to grow okra a couple of times here in southeast Wisconsin. Didn't have very good success with it. Now we are going to look at, and we do a container growing series that's on the website. We're going to try to grow some okra in a container that's black to try to bring in some of that heat because it loves heat. We may attempt that. I'm not certain if that's on the agenda yet, but it's a plant that, you know, you have to harvest it daily. But okra is a plant that will do well in heat. Now, some people will say, "Well, tomatoes is a heat-loving plant." That to an extent, tomatoes will do very well up to about 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Mm-hmm. Once that temperature is reached, they really basically shut down. They shut down because they don't like that extreme heat. And that's why in Texas or some of the southern areas, more Texas I know more about than other areas, they plant an early crop like many of us do. They plant it when they can get in the garden in the spring, and then those tomatoes kind of die out by the 4th of July. They plant these things like early in the spring, and then they start another crop. So by the time that the plants reach maturity, those hot temperatures have really slowed down to where they can get another crop. In most cases, if there's not like a frost or an early freeze.
Then there's peppers.
Peppers is a tropical plant. Hot peppers do better than bell peppers do, but that's another plant that does extremely well. The hotter you can have it, the better off you are. Now, keep in mind with any of these plants, hot temperatures are great. You got to have adequate moisture for the roots.
Right. So when it comes to growing plants in hot temperatures, like Joey had said, you want to make sure they're properly watered. Another one is eggplant, and that might be confusing because eggplant is a nightshade plant related to the tomato, but it does like the warmer weather better. Yeah,
put the heat to the roots and keep the water to it, and that thing will grow like a weed. Mm-hmm. It's an incredible grower. The hotter it is, the better, and that we have done. We're growing 2 of them in black containers from Rootmaker to get that root heat in them to try to get a good crop off of them.
And then there's sweet potatoes. Now, most people don't realize that is a tropical plant because they associate them with potatoes, just regular potatoes.
Two different things.
Two very different things. Sweet potato is a different type of root tuber plant. It's a tropical one as opposed to one that is a cooler weather.
And the sweet potato will vine.
Yeah, it vines.
And the regular potato will just grow a vertical stalk, and then it'll do its thing there. Swiss chard. For people who like spinach, Swiss chard is the go-to plant because spinach is a cool weather crop. Once the temperatures and the day lengths get to a certain extent, they'll go and bolt, which means they put on flowers and they put a seed pod on. But Swiss chard, you can plant that as long as the soil is about 50 degrees, and it will grow all the way until frost. It's a stalk, leafy. It's got a stalk on it that's edible, and it produces very large, leafy green, edible leaves. And you can harvest the leaves on the outside and the smaller ones for tenderness. You can also pickle the stalks. Some people may like that. We tried that. It was not we did it right. It just didn't have the taste that we were acquired to. Mm-hmm. It kind of has the similarity to maybe pickled celery. It's kind of what you may be looking at there.
Yeah.
It wasn't. We did what was required. We did the correct canning procedure.
It was just different.
It was different. So that's another one. That's a great one because you can plant that in containers in any area, and you can.
And it's pretty too. So you do it like an edible,
front yard edible. Yeah,
garden type of thing.
Yeah, we're going to talk to Shawna about some of the ways you can skirt around those
edible landscaping.
Edible landscaping. So that's another one, and you have different color stalks on it, and it really works quite well. And you can. I think we tried to grow it inside. We didn't care for it very well. But it will grow inside too, so that's a great one. And the nice thing about the Swiss chard, before we get on to the next one, you can take the leaves and cut the stem out, and you can roll cheese up in it and slightly hit it on the grill to melt the cheese, and you got like a Swiss chard cheese stick.
Yeah, they're delicious.
Yeah, really good on that. Black eyed peas. We've planted black eyed peas. I'm excited to get to see how those black eyed peas work. But they are a heat-loving plant. That's more of a southern thing as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm not certain if we're going to get the harvest that maybe we think we should because of we're not going to have that heat. Up here, tree collards. I don't know a whole lot about tree collards, but that's another edible plant that loves the heat. So that's some of the different ones that love the heat. Now, based on the different resources that you look after, you want to keep in mind what does good in heat and what doesn't, so that's not all of us experience desert heat, but we do need to be aware of the plants that do relatively well. Now, green beans, pole beans, they like the heat. Now, they don't like triple-digit type of heat, but the heat, if you can get some heat to them, that they do thrive in heat with that. So this is just some of the number of vegetables that you would grow or can grow in your vegetable garden, whether you're growing them now this year or you can prepare and plan for next year if you're in an area that is more susceptible to really a lot of heat, and I'm talking 90-plus degrees Fahrenheit. I'm not sure what that would be in Celsius.
I'm not sure.
I think like something like 35 degrees Celsius, because 25 degrees Celsius is 77 degrees. Oh. So you're going to be upwards in the upper 35s to 40 degrees Celsius for those who follow the metric system. So that's just some of the things that you want to consider when growing a garden. One, your environment, and two, the type of weather that you may experience. Coming up next, we're going to talk about some of the biggest mistakes gardeners make, and going to vent a little bit about things that, what are we going to have on, tell me what you really think.
When people make excuses for not having a garden.
All that and more coming up right after this.
Paradigm Gardens, Wisconsin's largest progressive gardening center. Located in Madison, Wisconsin, Paradigm Gardens offers the largest selections of soil amendments, organic and salt-based plant nutrients, grow lights, and hydroponic systems available in the Midwest. Our knowledgeable and experienced sales staff are always available to help. Visit our new website, www.paradigmgardens.com, or visit our retail store at 4501 Helgeson Drive, Madison, Wisconsin, just off Stoughton Road.
Looking for a fast-acting, non-toxic weed killer for your organic garden? One that works in cool and cloudy conditions as low as 40 degrees and is highly biodegradable with visible results in less than 2 hours? Then look no more. Avenger Weed Killer has it all and more. Made from oranges, Avenger is highly effective, easy to use, and has a pleasant citrus aroma. It is OMRI listed and approved for organic gardeners under the USDA's National Organic Program. Avenger Weed Killer is a choice for organic gardeners and homeowners who are looking for an effective, safe way to control unwanted weeds. Available in ready-to-use sprays and concentrate. Ask your local lawn and garden supplier for Avenger Weed Killer. For more information and a list of suppliers, visit AvengerOrganics.com. Avenger Weed Killer, eco-friendly, deadly to weeds.
It's all about the soil at ManureT.com. With their grass-fed, antibiotic, and growth hormone-free cattle and horses, owner Annie Haven puts the quality in her premium soil conditioner. 100% organic and natural, whether feeding your flowers or veggies, indoors or out, you can grow organically with confidence. To purchase authentic Haven brand Manure Tea, small orders or large, go to ManureT.com. Always free shipping.
Hi, I'm Douglas E. Welch from A Gardener's Notebook at DouglasEWelch.com. Whether I'm out working in the garden or dreaming of gardening during the long, cold winter nights, I love to hear what's happening in the garden with Joey and Holly Baird on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Podcast.
Welcome back to the program, everybody. If you want to find out, and we encourage you to check out the sponsors you've just heard in our entire sponsor lineup, you can find all that information at the website, the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com. Click on the podcast tab at the top of the page. That information is also in the show notes below. So this week on our regular segment entitled "Tell me what you really think," we're going to cover. What are we going to cover this week?
Basically, people that want to garden and they either have an excuse, they think they can't, they think it takes a lot of time, things like that. They say, "Oh, I wish I could do that, but I can't do it because of X, Y, Z."
Now, this is for those of you who are new tuning into the program. This is where we take a couple of minutes and just be open and rant and rave about something of this nature. You can check out some previous episodes that we've covered. But we're just going to be open and candid about our thoughts of what we really think is going on.
So, in many situations, you may not have a yard, or you may not have time, but you can grow a lot in containers or a small raised bed, or you can even do stuff in your windowsill in your apartment or your wherever you live, condo. So it just bothers me that people say this. "Oh, I don't have any space. I don't have a backyard. I don't have a front yard. I don't have this. I don't have that. Or my kids are too little." You should be gardening with your kids. Yes, maybe you have kids or whatever, but you could do a 4x4 area with them. That's how I grew up gardening, and I learned a thing or two. We composted, and I'm a better person because of it.
Well, container gardening, we have a series on the website as well as our YouTube channel that's entitled Growing in Containers.
Right.
Now, we've planted many items in these containers, and we're going to conclude the series with not only growing in containers, but harvesting in containers to show the versatility of what can be grown in a container. And realistically, excluding, let's say, monster giant pumpkins or possibly some of the bigger watermelon varieties, you really can grow anything that you grow in the ground in a container, and excluding probably garlic, asparagus, and possibly strawberries based on the type of strawberries you're deciding to grow. But you can do a variety of different things in containers. You don't have to till up the ground at all, or any labor-intensive activities like that.
Right. And if you have little kids, you can get them involved in gardening. You don't have to spend all weekend in the yard gardening. You can start a Memorial Day weekend. This is what we do. Start a Memorial Day weekend, grow throughout the summer, weeded it as needed, watered it when needed. It was a small garden, but we made it work. So it's definitely something that you can do with kids. And it just seems like these are excuses. Now, say you really don't have the space. You don't have a space for containers. You don't have a space for anything. You've got quintuplets. Then maybe you should consider things like going to the farmer's market, because you're going to get local fresh produce.
Right, and that's another thing that you can put that money back in the economy. You can also grow vertical. Shawna Coranado is coming up here in a moment on the program and discussing her book entitled Living Wall, where we're going to talk about how that came to be, that you don't have to put containers on a patio, porch, or deck, or balcony. You can attach these things to a wall and let this stuff grow vertical.
Right, so that's another option, is growing in a vertical manner. So there's a few different options out there for you. So I think what it comes down to when people say they wish they could do that, maybe they wish they had time, or that they weren't...
You don't have to garden like we do.
Yeah.
We grow about 11 and a half months out of the year. So you can start, and do the summer stuff. You don't have to do the cool weather crops or anything like that. You can just simply do tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers, and that will really bring a lot of nutrients or a lot of food into the house, and it does save money too.
Yeah, so it's definitely something that you want to give it a try. Maybe you say, I have a brown thumb or a black thumb.
Well, brown and black are the good colors of good soil, so
right.
that's you're already halfway there.
And maybe you had a bad experience before, but it's good for you. It keeps you busy. It gives you something to do. It keeps it good for your kids. So consider it. And
you only need, a small garden, 15 minutes a week. A little pop-up raised bed. So,
yeah.
So are you happy with that rant, that thought?
Yeah.
All right, let's close the door on this topic. Well, let's talk about another, I guess, dismal or disappointing topic of what we feel, and we've seen this and talked to people, the biggest reasons why people fail in the garden.
Sure.
There's a number of reasons, and you all have had issues in the garden with a plant not growing correctly or having issues with bugs. We've made a video on it. We've wrote an article about it, about fails that we have had in our garden. If you are a gardener that doesn't fail at gardening, one, let's talk to you, or two, you're just lying to you and everybody else.
Right. So it's something to think about is your failures, and it happens.
Well, like we had, for example, for us, we had 4 collard plants and a Brussels sprout plant in a bed, and they didn't do well. So we went ahead and planted some extra potatoes. We dug that up and planted potatoes where those plants should have been thriving. But now we've got an extra, 20 square feet of potatoes coming up. So what are some of and we kind of covered this a little bit, and tell me what you really think. But what are some of the biggest mistakes, not so much excuses, but biggest mistakes that people make in the garden? One is incorrect planting crops at the wrong time.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of times people will think...
We've done this.
Right, we've done this.
We pushed the weather, and it's supposed to be warm. We're going to try to get this stuff in the ground, and it becomes cold again, and the stuff rots.
Right, so that's a problem, is that you push the weather. We've seen people do this with anything from roots, vegetables, to tomatoes, to peppers. You get greedy, you get excited, you get impatient, whatever happens, all of a sudden you want your plants to grow, and they're not growing because they were not planted at the right time.
Well, another one can be planting the crops too close. Now, there is recommendations upon what a plant should be planted. Tomatoes every 2 feet apart. And there is a level of gardening called intensive gardening, where you purposely put plants very close together for a number of reasons, and this can be for to keep the light from evaporating the soil, kind of as a plant mulch. Mm-hmm. It also can be a barrier to help the plants grow within each other, kind of like a living trellis.
Right. So there's that option, is to plant them together for those reasons. Another thing would be intercropping. So the plants...
You plant, let's say you plant radishes in the middle of your parsnip rows, because radishes take a much quicker time to reach maturity. So that's another way. What are some other mistakes that people make, or the biggest mistakes that people make in the garden?
I would say they don't plan ahead. Don't
plan ahead. Got an example on that one?
Yeah, you got to figure out where you're going to put your stuff. You're going to figure out what you're going to grow. If this is your second year, go out and measure your gardening space and decide that you've got X amount of square feet. Each tomato plant takes a square foot, so think about that. But then you can fit, like, is it 16 radishes or something?
Yeah, 16 radishes per 1 square foot, 9 beets, 9 bean plants, etc.
So figure out your square footage, and then figure out if you are limited on space, you could do a square foot method. You could look that up. You could, maybe you don't want to dig in the ground, you could do a raised bed or a straw bale garden. So there's lots of options for you, even if you don't want to do anything.
And you don't have to be a major planner. You just need to have a general idea of what's going in. Now, we're a little different. I've already got stuff planned basically for next year in certain areas of the garden. Mm-hmm. And, when we do our video productions, our weekly videos and all the additional videos, I have that planned out 1 month in advance. Every month I've got the next month already planned out, 95% of what we're going to film. And there always is some changes when we get to the filming it. But you don't have to be that intensive of planning. You just simply need to look at, hey, I'm going to plant tomatoes. Where is the sunniest spot during summer that these tomatoes are going to be planted? Because the sun that may be very intense in this winter may be completely shaded in summer because there is a tree with leaves on it.
Right. So that's definitely something to think about, as well as where you're putting stuff.
So let's open this up. If you have an opinion on what you feel is the biggest mistakes gardeners make, you can go to the website, thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com, and there's a contact button. And just go ahead and drop your information in, or if you follow us on social media, go ahead and share that information and let us see what you feel is your biggest, the biggest mistakes people make in the garden. Another one is overwatering or underwatering. I think we need to kind of address that.
And kind of watering at the wrong time of the day, too.
Wrong time of the day, and using either splashing the water on the plants, and that's not good for plants that are very susceptible to powdery mildew and blight, which is tomatoes and viney squash. You get that soil splashing up on the plants, that you're already introducing or inviting yourself for problems, because that's where a lot of diseases live, in the soil. And by splashing that up, by being lazy and just pouring the water on the plant, you're already going to have problems down the road. 95% of a chance you will. So that's something that, and some plants require a lot of water, some plants require very little water. As we spoke about in the first segment, plants that really, really love the heat, but all plants need a certain amount of water. So that's just some of the, this is just some of the biggest mistakes that we see. Obviously, there's many, many more. And just because you make the mistakes, that doesn't mean you're a bad gardener or you fail at gardening.
No, many of us learn from our mistakes, and we learn to help others too. So it's a positive thing. Mistakes obviously aren't fun, but they're going to set you back. But that's what happens. So it's good to learn from.
And then we show a lot of that on our videos and our digital magazines. So coming up next, stay tuned. Right after this break, we will have our guest, and we're always excited when she stops by and chats with us, Shawna Coranado, author, former TEDx speaker, and just all-around good, fun person to talk to about gardening. Right after this.
Kapow
Kapow is an American company that grew out of the need to develop an everyday product that would help us decrease our eco footprint. Utilizing the mason jar as its foundation, Kapow has created accessories turning your mason jar into a multi-use device, drinking lids and lunchbox adapters, plus so much more, made entirely in the USA from carefully selected food-safe plastic that is just the right thickness for both durability and ease of use. For hot and cold beverages, certified safe for all ages and dishwasher safe too, get your Kapow accessories. Visit kapow.com.
A gardener knows that the key to a good plant is its roots. With poor roots, the end result is not good. Conventional pots and trays cause roots to wrap around and become root-bound. Then you try to unwrap the roots at the time of planting, hoping not to break them. But never again with the Root Maker, a non-chemical innovation that naturally air prunes roots to create more vigorous roots. Never a root-bound plant again. Whether trees, flowers, or edibles, home garden or commercial grower, more roots means healthier, more productive plants. To get your own, visit rootmaker.com.
Oh, yeah. What you say? You say Nasala Kombucha. It'll put some glide in your stride and some pep in your step. Nasala Kombucha. Yeah.
Nasala Kombucha makes your body happy. Nasala Kombucha makes your body smile.
Hey there, this is Hugh Richards from the YouTube channel Hugh's Nursery, which teaches you how you can grow organic vegetables cheaply and easily at home. You're currently listening to Joey and Holly Baird on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener podcast.
Welcome back to the program, everybody. If you want to know more about the sponsors you've just heard in our entire sponsor lineup, check them out at the website, the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com. Support them because they support us in the same gardening beliefs that you should grow anywhere for free.
It's always great when our next guest stops by, just a few hours south of the WI Garden Media Studios, a recent TEDx speaker, front yard gardener, author, and she has a regular gardening segment on Fox 32 of Chicago that you can see on her self-named website and YouTube channel at ShawnaCoranado.com. Welcome to the show, Shawna.
Thank you so much. I've always loved coming on your show. You're full of information.
Well, we appreciate that. Now, you've just, over the last 6-8 months, released your 4th book, and the title is Growing a Living Wall. Where, everybody has inspiration. Where did the inspiration for this particular book come from?
I was standing in a garden center holding a 24-inch by 7-inch window box. That window box, when I looked at it, I realized I think this is a square foot. So I did the math right there, and it turned out that it's 1.16 square feet. And that was amazing to me because everyone has access to window boxes. You can get it at any store, any garden center, and with a few brackets, you could hang them anywhere, not just under windows, right? And so the conceptual idea of what if you stacked 4 or 5 of these on top of one another, and then you could have in 1 square foot of space 35 to 40 plants growing. So Grow a Living Wall, the book, came out because of this conceptual idea of really being able to grow in a tiny, tiny space as many plants as possible. I experimented for many years, like in the front lawn veggie garden that I have. I plant the plants very closely together. And, my grandmother used to tell me you can't do that. You have to have long rows for air. You have to have a certain type of garden. And in reality, you can use your creativity. You can try new ideas. Growing a living wall is possible because you can do that close planting. And it really works marvelously.
And you speak about that close planting. We've seen this with the Mel Bartholomew square foot gardening. It can be done. We've just got to get our minds to realize it was done a certain way decades ago, but we know that we can do it a different way now and be more successful at it.
Right, exactly. And it works just fine. And in Grow a Living Wall, each chapter is a different project. So you see how you can make a cocktail garden, or how you can make a pollinator garden, or a vegetable garden, or any kind of herb garden, all vertical and in tiny space. Now, the thing is that urban gardeners around the world, I mean, we're talking in Europe and in big cities here in the United States where they have very, very tiny space, growing a living wall makes really common sense because they don't have a place that's flat to grow. And, you know, containers are fantastic, but it's really hard to grow in a traditional container on a balcony because you don't have much space to move around after that. You know, you put a big container out with a tomato in it, and that's all the space that you have for the whole balcony. And enabling people to have more space to live and also grow is part of the goal with this book.
On your website, you have a tab or a link where you have a whole bunch of recipes called $10 Culinary, and these are food recipes and also cocktails, from what I see. Now, what was your inspiration behind this?
Are you kidding? It was all, everybody kept saying, hey, what you're teaching me how to grow the dang kale. No, how do I eat it? Because I don't know how to prepare it. And that was the entire inspiration for $10 Culinary, because people can't afford, you know, they're losing their homes because of the downturn of the home industry. I mean, that's starting to come up again. But the reality is that financially things aren't what they were 15, 20 years ago. And so people are trying to find new creative ways to save money just to live. And food is one thing that we have to have, right? You know, you may have a mortgage, you may have an apartment, but you definitely have to buy yourself food. Why spend tons of money making meals when it's absolutely unnecessary? So $10 Culinary is the idea of being able to use fresh, organic herbs and vegetables and cook for less.
I definitely encourage our listeners to go check it out because there's a lot of great recipes there.
Well, the thing is Hamburger Helper, seriously, why are we buying Hamburger Helper? It's still one of the top sellers in the United States when you're talking about boxed food, when you could get some organic meat and use some fresh herbs from the garden and have a much better flavor in your meal for far less.
Yep. Now, in some places in the United States, water doesn't exist. In other portions of the United States, there's too much water. But we need to understand how to conserve the water that falls on our property. What are some of the techniques and methods that you use there in your garden to help conserve and maximize the water usage that you water your plants with?
Well, the most obvious is rain barrels. And, you know, I was just walking by a store yesterday, and it's $80 a rain barrel. That's a pretty high price for one. You can go out and use an old trash can and make your own rain barrel for cheap. I also have a rainwater cistern. But the thing when you're talking about the basic garden, how do you save water the most? You save water by amending the soil so that it holds the water better. So I mix in with my soil. Now, I'm in the Midwest, but I think this combination is good for almost anyone. It's rotted manure, compost, and then mulch really, really well. So I mix this in with my soil whenever I can. Every year I add a new layer. I do not have a till garden. I have a no-till garden. And I'll add a new layer of soil, of rotted manure, of mulch, and I keep it going up and up and up so that the goal is to hold the moisture at the root level. Now, the most obvious way to save water is a drip system. I don't have a drip system in my garden because I haven't been able to afford like a fancy drip system or something like that. So I use a series of sprinklers, and then when it comes to tomatoes and that sort of thing, I water from the ground. I do have like a little drip hose just in that area only where the tomatoes are. Tomato in our region, they've been getting blight. Blight's very common right now, and it's because of all that we had a heavy rain season last year, but then people water from the top. So don't water from the top, water from the bottom, and make sure that your soil is rich and holds that moisture.
And you talk about your no-till garden. A lot of people sometimes, in some backgrounds, they till religiously twice a year. And it's a lot of work, you got to buy the equipment, you got to maintain the equipment. By doing a no-till garden like you, in the long run, it's very, very little maintenance that you have to do on the soil.
Precisely. Not only that, every time you till, all those microbes that you've built up by adding rotted manure and compost and all that are killed when they're exposed to the air. So by tilling, like the first season, you might get a little bit of an oomph because of the soil change. But as the seasons progress, you're really using the soil so much that it's not better for the root systems in the plants. And so that's part of why we don't want to kill those microbes. We want to grow them. We want to encourage them. And to do that, I no-till, so I don't turn that ground over. And the other thing is I try to add mycorrhiza when I have an opportunity, and then the rotted manure at every opportunity, because it really helps strengthen the root systems of your plant.
So you talked about the microbial life in the soil. Let's talk about insects and bugs above the soil. The news has come out that the bees have really took a hit in the last year. What are some ways that you, Shawna Coranado, encourages bees to come into your garden and to help pollinate your vegetables?
Native plants. I was just talking about this. I have bees and butterflies I want to encourage. So I have tons of Asclepias, which is milkweed, those type of plants for the butterflies, specifically for the monarchs. And then I prefer to grow plants that would encourage bees. Native plants that flower are the best. They really are. And so I do have a couple Russian sage on my property, but a friend of mine suggested that Russian sage does not encourage native bees. This is a good point. Native local plants are needed to encourage native local bees. And so I really do think go do some research and find out what native flowering plants might work for you. For example, we have Liatris is a common prairie plant here. It looks so attractive in the garden. It's that tall, purple, spiky plant, and it really does a lot to encourage both bees and butterflies.
And don't spray your dandelions, because the bees, that's one of the first flowers the bees go after in the spring.
Exactly. Pull them. If you don't want a dandelion or something like that, I don't use any chemicals on these plants. I just pull them out.
Now, you're a front yard gardener, and your reasonings are because of light, but some people have gardening restrictions in their, whether it be in their neighborhood or their municipality or their housing authority or whatever. What are some ways to get around these restrictions?
I think the most common thing you can do is expand your beds. Okay, so everyone that I know in suburbia has foundation plantings. You are allowed to plant around the foundation geraniums, all kinds of annuals, all of that sort of thing. Why not be a little sneaky? Take that border, that foundation planting border out an extra foot, just 1 foot. So we're not talking, don't take up the entire yard, just take it out 1 foot. And then plant ornamental edibles. Ornamental edibles are beautiful, and a lot of people don't know that they are vegetables. So we're talking about Swiss chard, kale, any kind of lettuces. And those type of things, they almost look like hostas sometimes. Or rhubarb is a beautiful plant that resembles a hosta in a way, the way that it has those big leaves. No one knows the difference unless you specifically are growing road tomatoes or something like that. Then they're going to say something. So first of all, always ask permission from your city. If you do have a restriction, then listen to what they have to say. Most of the time the restriction is a certain percentage of your front lawn. So, for example, don't plant more than 60% of your front lawn in anything taller than 2 feet. So cities will have different types of wording that you need to follow. Listen to them, stick to the rules, but also expand those beds a little bit. I think that's where you're going to get the most oomph from an ornamental edible garden.
Well, we talked about this in the intro. You have a regular appearance on Fox 32 out of Chicago. Now, for us and for you, and there's a number of our listeners that do YouTube videos, but there is a different world whenever between recording what you're doing and doing it live. What kind of transition or training did you have to go through in order to be ready to be live television, somebody talking in your ear when you're trying to do something?
It is kind of funny. You do hear them. You're right. You hear them talking to your ear. They hook up a little it's like a wire that's on there's a little box that they hook to the back of your neck, and then there's a little wire that feeds around to your ear. And I can hear the whole show. I can hear the producers talking to me in my ear. They don't really guide me much. They tell me when I'm on and when I'm off. But outside of that, if there's an issue with the camera operator, they might say something that. But outside of that, I'm the one who plans the shows themselves. So, for example, just a couple shows ago, we did top 3 ornamental edible plants that you can plant in shade. And I just mentioned them. It was dinosaur kale and Swiss chard and one of my favorites, which is blood beets. So we went through the entire, me giving the whole description and everything to them. They had nothing to do with the actual, what I said. They were more concerned about production. So what I have to do is plan in advance for all the television shows. So I lay out the show. I know I only have 3 minutes, so I have to very concisely, decide what are we going to have for each feature and how is it going to work. And it's been wonderful. I've really enjoyed the experience. And as far as training to prepare myself for something, there is no training. It's called Learn the Hard Way. And I really learned the hard way doing YouTube videos. I have 200 videos on YouTube with over, it's like 1.4 million views or something like that now. And those videos were, I've left all the bad ones and the good ones up on YouTube. But lots of failures and learning, and that sort of process helped me to prepare me for this sort of experience. And I love it. I really like working in front of the camera, and I like the production part of it as well. So this has been quite the adventure.
Well, you're very natural at it, and people can find that on your website. And your website, again, is? ShawnaCoranado.com. Super easy. You can go out there. You can find my books, recipes, and, of course, on the left side, if you want to go see some of those Fox News appearances, you can see them all on the left side of my website. Click right through. Shawna, we greatly appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to be with us today and sharing the information for us and our listeners.
Terrific. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
If you could double the life of your raised bed boxes by sealing the wood with a non-toxic wood preservative, would you? Well, now you can with a clear, penetrating product called Internal Wood Stabilizer. It's 100% non-toxic and easy to apply. Seal your bare, untreated wood surfaces, even chicken coops, by spraying Internal Wood Stabilizer. It's invisible, seals the wood from the inside out, and never wears off. Recommended by organic gardening experts. Internal Wood Stabilizer. Check it out at timberprocoatings.com.
Do you want your next raised beds to be easy, functional, and beautiful? The Embrace helps you create the garden you've always wanted. Finally, raised beds that everyone can assemble and enjoy. No tools needed. Just slide any lumber into the Embrace corner, fill with your favorite soil mix, and you're ready to plant. Made from 100% recycled steel right here in the USA. And a portion of every sale helps to build school and community gardens all across the country. Let the Embrace help you create your next raised bed. Grow beautifully with the Embrace. Available at local garden centers and online at artofthegarden.net.
It's Joey
And Holly Baird
of the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Podcast, taking a moment to remind you that you can sign up for a weekly email so you don't miss anything that we do, our podcast, our videos, our digital quarterly magazine. You won't miss anything by signing up.
Just go onto our website on the right-hand side. There's a big button for you to press. Just go ahead and sign up right now.
And you can also ask us questions. Underneath that big green button, there's a big red button. So sign up for our emails for free, no spam, and if you've got a question, you can send us that as well. WisconsinVegetableGardener.com for the health-conscious organic gardener worldwide.
This is Jeff Radke from the Lost Skills Podcast. You can listen to me at lostskillspodcast.com. Now back to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Podcast with Holly and Joey Baird.
Welcome back to the program. If you would like to check out those sponsors you've just heard and our entire sponsor lineup, you can visit the website, wisconsinvegetablegardener.com, and click on the podcast tab at the top of the page. Support them because they support us, and those links are also in the show notes below. Well, we've got 2 more important topics to cover before we get out of here, Holly. One is gardening in 2 minutes, and then we're going to talk about eating weeds. Gardening in 2 Minutes is an audio production that Holly and I produce on a weekly basis for a number of podcasts and a few radio programs. If you would like Gardening in 2 Minutes on your particular program, contact us through the website. This Gardening in 2 Minutes is all about...
It's all about making a better compost pile.
This Gardening in 2 Minutes is sponsored by OurDailySalt.com. Chef Felicia Wiles handcrafts kitchen accessories and tools. She knows what the average kitchen cook needs, as well as the professional chef. Visit her new designed and new overhauled website at OurDailySalt.com. Shipping United States and international. And here is Gardening in 2 Minutes. This is Gardening in 2 Minutes. When it comes to composting, many gardeners fall well short of what they could potentially compost on their own property. We're going to offer you some suggestions and tips to help your compost pile be better than it's ever been before.
When it comes to composting, you want to have a good location. This includes a location that can get an optimal amount of sun. You also want to keep in mind that where you live, you may have to keep it self-contained. So make sure you check into that before you start composting. When it comes to composting, you want to have a good mixture of greens and brown materials. Greens would include food scraps from your kitchen and grass clippings. When it comes to food scraps, you do not want to add any meat or bones. With brown materials, that includes leaves in the fall and shredded paper.
You also don't want to add any grease or dairy products to that. When it comes to composting, you can turn your pile or you can leave it set. Now, by leaving it set, it will take longer to break down. By turning it, you're going to allow more oxygen to get into the core of the pile and allow the organisms to break the materials down quicker. Now, there's different techniques on the speed and process of these. We'll leave that up to you for your own research and what you feel is best for your particular situation. Composting can be a fun activity and can save you a lot of money and prevent a lot of material from going unnecessarily to the landfill. For more information on composting, the do's and don'ts, and our weekly video productions, as well as our free downloadable digital quarterly magazine, you can find all that information at
theWisconsinVegetableGardener.com.
For Gardening in 2 Minutes, I'm Joy Baird.
And I'm Holly Baird.
So with that compost, building the best compost pile and helping create one that will work very well, many people, the number one content that they put in their compost pile is weeds. Mm-hmm. Now, weeds are plants that are grown in areas that you do not want them or they're not beneficial where they're at. But there's a number of weeds that are edible. Now, warning, we are just going to talk about this. If you decide to eat weeds, it's your responsibility to know what you're eating, and we're not responsible for the end result if you choose poorly or choose the wrong plant thinking it might be the right plant. So we're going to talk about a number of weeds that are edible. Holly, you've got a couple that you're going to start off with.
So there's lamb's quarter.
Lamb's quarter, okay.
And it's kind of like a spinach.
It is a substitute for spinach.
Yeah, and people will use it, and they'll make like lamb's quarter pesto, lamb's quarter salads.
This is a plant that the Native Americans used, was a very heavily used in their diet. Mm-hmm. Wild asparagus, there's such thing as wild asparagus. So that's another one, knowing what you're looking for. Burdock, it's a... Burdock, yeah. Burdock. Burdock. Now, we're going to provide a link in the show notes that takes you to a website that lists and shows what these plants look like that you may choose. Now let's just also stress that just because a weed is edible, Holly, that doesn't mean that weed tastes good.
No. So some of these you might have to learn how to cook them or prepare them in a way that makes them taste better, or you maybe put them in with a salad or something that is good.
And it also may benefit all of us to learn and understand and know what these plants look like in the instant that you're lost in the woods, you're in a car wreck that you can't, you're immobile and you only have a certain area that you can crawl to, so you know what is edible, so you know what could potentially keep you alive until help comes.
Right.
Okay, so that's just another thing.
So then there's dandelions. Now this is becoming a big thing.
You can buy dandelion seeds in some of these online catalogs.
Yeah. So this is becoming like a thing where it's not necessarily even a weed anymore. It's becoming a whatever.
Well, dandelions, there's 300 varieties of dandelions that's known to man. None of them are poisonous. The roots are you can boil the roots and get some nutrients out of that. I think it's like a blood cleanser or something like that. The leaves are edible. The actual flower is edible. So, and supposedly, now, this is what I've been told and shown, that when you take the stalk, the flower sits on, and you snap it and you get that milky substance on it, that you can actually put that on warts, and that's supposed to help warts go away.
Okay.
So
now people use it to make jams and wines, and just pretty much anything that you can, you can try to make with it. People will make like tinctures with it and stuff. So it's definitely something to look into.
Cattails are another one. There's some edible portions on a cattail. And then even in a survival situation in the fall, that cattail, that top, that hot dog looking thing, great tinder. Even if you're not in a survival situation, you can use that as kindling, basically get a fire started. Just regular clover. Clover you find in your yard, that's an edible plant.
And there's chicory, which is like it's kind of a sad-looking plant with purple flowers, purplish blue flowers. But
chickweed. That's a plant that is just a nuisance in the garden.
Yeah. Curled dock.
That's a new one. I'm not familiar with that.
No.
Dandelions. We talked about dandelions. And there's a number of other ones here that pursling's another one that some seed companies sell. So there's a lot of edible plants out there. Green seaweed, I'm not sure if we have that. Kelp, that's what you get out of the ocean. That is an edible plant.
I've heard it depends. It might not be too tasty though. So
there's want to eats and there's got to eats.
Yeah.
There's some things that you want to eat and there's some things that you're in a situation where you got to eat. So sometimes you don't have a choice. Now, plantain, am I correctly pronouncing that? That is a plant that we all find in our gardens. All of us think it's a weed. Now, this is supposed to, and every week, you look on social media and there's, this is the new go-to plant, the greatest plant in the world, the fix-all plant. So that's something that, if you know what these plants look like, then it may be something that's beneficial to looking at. Prickly pear cactus, some of you in the southern areas that have that is an edible plant. There's a lot of recipes for prickly pear on that. Purslane, that's a plant that comes in the spring when you have a lot of moisture. Some of you who are listening have a lot of moisture, and this may be something that comes up in your garden. So there's a number of things. Now, we're also going to put mustard. Mustard plants are wild mustard is another plant that...
garlic mustard, too.
Garlic mustard is another one, right, that is edible in your garden. So there's... and the list goes on and on and on. Now, what we're also going to do, for those of you who are more interested in learning about wild edibles that may be just in your own yard, we've got there's a friend on, a fellow YouTuber, his name is Alan Hobbs. He has a YouTube channel. He's into bushcraft and survivalism, goes on camping trips, but he's also doing a series on his YouTube channel that is all about wild edibles, understanding them, knowing what they are, that's in your own backyard, and the ones that are, that are fake edibles that you shouldn't eat versus the ones that you should. So we're going to provide that in a link for those of you who may be interested in knowing more about wild edibles, which it's a good thing to know, even if you're not going to eat them. It's just it's intriguing.
And plus, if you've got kids or whatever, you can point out and say that's this, and then tell them what it could do. And maybe, you can do a learning process. It's
just amazing how many things that we as gardeners believe are nuisance plants, but have so many benefits, and that are edible, that are healthy, that, are better than buying a box of potato chips at the store.
Right. And you can make creative stuff with them, and then they offer different benefits for your body.
So that's what it is. We'll have those two links in the show notes below. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you tuning in to the show this week. We appreciate you participating, and hopefully you picked up something along the way. For the audio that you've heard in the program, that's courtesy of freesfx.co.uk and audioneutronics.com, two royalty-free and copyright-free websites that we use to help liven up the podcast. The other audio...
the other audio comes from Nasala Kombucha and Paradigm Gardens. They provided their own audio.
So until we see you again, we thank you. If you, feel free to share this with those of your gardening friends who this may help. So until next time, I'm Joy Baird.
And I'm Holly Baird.
And we will see you in the garden. The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Podcast is a production of the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com for the health-conscious organic gardener worldwide and distributed in association with WI Garden Media.